now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Those of us who are a part of new black media need to get ready for the war that is getting ready to come in 2024. Now, 2024 is the next presidential election, and Joe Biden's approval rating is at an all-time low, along with many of his members of his blue party. And with Joe Biden's approval rating at an all-time low due to his contempt that he showed foundational black Americans when he was the presidential elect in 2020, and his numerous disastrous economic policies and policies related to the border, what many on the left are gonna want to do to try to control the narrative is look to make new black media the scapegoat for all of the failures of the Biden administration in an effort to try to control the narrative as related to the largest voting bloc that they have, which are black voters. And because they want to influence the thoughts of foundational black American voters, what's going to happen is many of the supporters of the left and the blue party are going to want to try to wage a campaign to try to discredit and demonize the voices of new black media. And part of that campaign will be them going out here and using their bootlicks like Roland Martin and their on-network shills to go out here and look to try to promote a counter message to try to scare foundational black Americans into taking their booties to the poll one more again and looking to support Joe Biden, even though Joe Biden and the members of the Blue Party have done nothing but express contempt for foundational black Americans for the last 16 years. And I say 16 years because ever since Barack Obama was elected to become the president of the United States, we have seen the members of the Blue Party basically express nothing but contempt for foundational black Americans and look to foster a codependent relationship with foundational black Americans where they believe that they are entitled to the votes of foundational black Americans and don't need to give any sort of tangibles to us. However, over the 8 years that Barack Obama was president, what has happened is we have started to see a lot of voices rise on new black media, on social media platforms like YouTube and many other platforms that are out there such as Rumble and Odyssey and even people's own personal websites. And as these voices of new black media have been presenting talking points, they have been having an influence on many foundational black Americans and making us think about who we vote for and what we get in exchange for our votes. Now, the first of those voices I heard talking about a completely different political discourse was the late David Carroll, and the late David Carroll was a man who had tremendous influence on persuading foundational black Americans to rethink their choices for voting with his masterpiece video, No Hope, No Change for the Negro. And with that video, No Hope, No Change for the Negro, he began to explain the subtleties as related to the political situation transpiring around foundational black Americans and began to peel the facade off the Blue Party that many believed was that this party was more for black people. However, he began to show us that this party really wasn't concerned about black people, just pushing a narrative and as related to diversity and tolerance, but never really was ever about helping black people achieve anything in this country. And with his voice, we started to see other voices really start to gain momentum that had already been out there. There had been men like the Black Authority, Professor Black Truth, and Mr. Superboy, who had been actively out here telling people to really think before they vote and to look to really not take your vote for granted the way we used to back in the 90s with Bill Clinton, where black people just heard him play a saxophone, and then we all rushed to the polls to vote straight down a blue ticket, and that wasn't happening as the Obama term went on, and that's what started to get many of the people in the Blue Party upset in 2016 when Hillary thought she could coast on a base of white women and black voters, and when the white women turned to vote for Donald Trump, that's when they wanted to blame black voters for the failure of the campaign of Hillary Clinton, and that's what's really started the tension between the Blue Party and the black community. But the black community still tried to hold on. We had a lot of the old boomers looking to hold on, but they realized they couldn't hold on after the pandemic, and Joe Biden received all of their votes when we took our booties to the poll with that whole passive-aggressive ad with the strippers. It was just an insult to black people, but black people bought into the narrative that they needed to save democracy as related to Joe Biden keeping the evil Donald Trump from destroying America's democracy. But instead of rewarding foundational black Americans for taking their booties to the poll, what Joe Biden did was take black leaders into a room and talk down to them like a paternalistic slave master, telling them that he was going to do nothing for foundational black Americans for saving his democracy, and telling foundational black Americans they needed to get with the Hispanic community if they wanted any sort of crumbs from his table. Now, this middle finger thrown up at black people before Joe Biden took the oath basically was the straw that broke the camel's back as related to his relationship with the black community and the Blue Party's relationship with the black community, because the contempt shown to foundational black Americans as related to saving the democracy from the evil Donald Trump was the ultimate form of disrespect, and that's when many foundational black Americans started to realize they could not support Joe Biden because Joe Biden didn't want to support us. No, he thought that he had this coalition of Hispanics, Asians, and Arabs who would go out here and be able to make up for the black vote. And what happened was, over the last 3 years, as he's enforced many dysfunctional policies like his deals for electric cars and other dysfunctional policies like his American Screwjob plan, which basically pumped a lot of money into the economy, creating inflation. And all of these policies basically made it where Joe Biden basically alienated many of the groups of the coalition, and that basically became exacerbated when he decided to go out here and support Israel, and that blew up in his face, alienating many of the Palestinian voters who were citizens who he imported here. This, combined with the migrant crisis, basically created a platform where Joe Biden's approval rating went from being in the high numbers when he first started to dropping underwater to the point where Joe Biden is basically unelectable possibly at this point. And with Joe Biden basically being unelectable at this point, and many of the members of the Blue Party losing elections now in the aftermath of the 2022 midterms, where they basically squeaked by going out here and scaring women on abortion, they realized that they're out of cards for 2024, and with them basically being out of cards, what they want to do is try to go out here and try to scare black voters into taking their booties to the poll one more again. And part of that campaign to scare black people into taking their booties to the poll one more again is to go out here and discredit the voices of new black media and use their whole mainstream media platforms as weapons to go after the voices of new black media. Now, what they want to do in their campaign is attack on three fronts. The first front they want to attack the voices of new black media on is the legacy media platforms. And what they want to do on those platforms like MSNBC, CNN, and many of these left-leaning media platforms that are controlled by the Big Six is go out and use their black mouthpieces to go after the voices of new black media. And they'll start with their guys like Roland Martin and many of the other bootlicks and shills on these shows like MSNBC shows and CNN shows. That's going to be the first part of their campaign. First, looking to scare people by saying you need to go and vote blue no matter who, because blue is going to protect you and save the quote-unquote democracy, where the leadership has done nothing for black people. Moreover, as they've done nothing for black people, the quality of life for Americans, regardless of race, has gone down. But they want to go after after the voices of new black media with these platforms by scaremongering first, and then after they go out here and scaremonger as related to telling people, oh, you got to not vote for Donald Trump, then they're going to want to go out here and in phase two, if they can't get Joe Biden to get any momentum, what they will do is go out here and try to promote an alternative candidate in Joseph Kennedy Jr., a candidate we did not pick, and a candidate who was not signed on to a black agenda. And that's where black people really need to start thinking critically. Again, if you want to get tangibles for your vote, like the late David Carroll tried to tell you in many of his classic videos, you have to have your own agenda and you have to pick your own candidate. You can't let the media put another candidate's name in your mouth. No, we have to be like new black media and say, look, this guy is not one we picked. He's not on our agenda, so we are not supporting this candidate. And again, and once we start putting that message out, you can look for them to go from their black media bootlicks to go get their white media bootlicks to go promote an anti-new black media message. And this is where it's going to get really testy, because what's going to happen here is this is where they're going to try to manipulate the spellbound black people into being influenced into supporting these candidates, because once they see the white faces telling you that new black media is bad and looking to demonize new black media, what we're going to have is an attempt to sow division between the voices of new black media as related to the black vote and the boomer black masses. And this is going to be done in order to sow this division so that they can gain inroads, because they know that many of these people who are black boomers and older, they basically want to fit into the black box that's acceptable to white people, and they will look to go out here and vote for Joe Biden or Joseph Kennedy Jr. or anybody that the white media faces tell them to, because they want to fit into that black box. And that's a covert contract that we cannot allow to be promoted, because that's the same covert contract that led to Joe Biden winning in 2020 and expressing his contempt for us. And that would be the definition of insanity, because that's doing the exact same thing and expecting a different result. And we see that we got nothing the first time, so we cannot go out here and allow them to divide us by going from putting a message out there with their black bootlicks to their white mainstream reporters. And that's all, again, all part of the war against new black media, because they don't want people in new black media to start gaining even more influence over the black voting bloc. So they want to keep their influence over us. And again, if their bootlicks aren't working, they go out and get their white voices. And if those white voices don't really influence people, what they're going to do is go into the next stage. And the next stage is trying to discredit and demonize black people who are voices on new black media as not having credibility because they are not what they having degrees and all this stuff. This is the other attempt they're going to try to do. But we in the black grassroots need to understand that it's not about education or credentials, because many of us are more aware of the subtle politics transpiring around us, and we are the ones understanding that there is a lot at stake. So we have to steel our resolve because we are the ones, again, having an influence and an impact on people, and that's what really scares many of those who control the mainstream media. What scares many of those who control the mainstream media is the fact that we have influence, and it's growing, and it's been growing for the last, I'd say, about 10 to 12 years, where people are really in the black community realizing that blue doesn't care about you. They take the black vote for granted, and they give tangibles to everyone, from people with the anti-Asian hate crime bill to even giving non-citizens like migrants and Ukrainians tangibles over black people, and even shipping money over to countries like Israel. Everybody is put before foundational black Americans, but these same blue politicians come to black people for their vote, and they come for the black vote and express contempt for it. Now, as they express their contempt for it, they want to attack new black media platforms, and they want to go out and attack new black media because they see our growing influence. And as they see our growing influence, they are again looking to continue to attack new black media, and those attacks are going to escalate in 2024 because they know that they cannot really influence the black masses. And with, again, Joe Biden's approval rating at an all-time low, they are really desperate. And I wouldn't put it past any of these platforms, which not only include legacy media, but social media as well, to start looking to wage censorship campaigns against people on places like YouTube. Now, when it comes to YouTube, during the days of the COVID pandemic, they were flagging videos and taking videos down related to the jab, and I wouldn't put it past them towards starting to look to flag channels and take videos down that speak against the Blue Party if Joe Biden's numbers continue to be poor over the course of the 2024 election, because many of the leftists, they basically believe that if they silence dissenters, this will get people to stop thinking about voting for Donald Trump. However, they aren't giving people a reason to vote for them in the quest to preserve their so-called democracy, and I wouldn't put it past them to start participating in fascism if they wanted to go out here to preserve their so-called democracy, because when it came time for the jab, it was members of the Blue Party who were looking to coerce people into taking that shot, and I wouldn't put it past them to try to coerce people into looking to vote for their candidate and present their candidate as an ideal. But this is the type of ethics that they've had ever since Hillary lost to Donald Trump. And sadly, they don't see that if they wanted to go out here and persuade voters, the thing that they needed to do was stop being so arrogant and aloof and believing that their position is superior, because it was the whole condescending view of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton that alienated a lot of non-black voters, and the condescending and disrespectful way he treated black people that basically started to alienate black people from voting for the Blue Party. And the fact that he did nothing for people like Trayvon Martin or Michael Brown to get them justice really started alienating people. And this was further escalated by Joe Biden, who further disrespected black people. So they want to go out here and look to silence black voices that they didn't want to hear back in 2008, but have gotten louder on social media. And now I believe that they would possibly look to silence those black voices, with them basically being desperate at this point. and their supporters being desperate at this point. What's happening is that they would look to, again, censor people. I wouldn't put it past them in their war against new black media, because they know that new black media is having a stronger influence on new generations like Gen Y and Gen Z, who grew up with computers. And because they grew up with computers instead of television, they cannot be persuaded to go out here and think and vote the way many of the boomers and some of the Gen Xers did. Many of us Gen Xers and boomers, they grew up with television, and Bill Clinton playing a saxophone would basically get us to believe he was a good guy. However, in the days of new black media, these candidates cannot really go out and hide with a television with an empty symbolic appearance. No, with the information superhighway created by Bill Clinton and Al Gore, what happens is people can find your information and find your paperwork and find out whether you're serious about helping black people or if you're an empty suit. And that's what really has all of these individuals shook, like Joe Biden, who basically has gone out here and shown us he's the worst president since Jimmy Carter, or I dare even say worse than Herbert Hoover, because his disconnection and detachment from the American people as related to many of the crises that are going on right now, such as the migrant crises and the whole quality of life in America. This man basically is watching the country run into the ground, but he would rather have his smooth world and tell us everything is fine. And part of keeping that narrative going is looking to control the narrative of new black media, which is presenting the truth. And that's why there's going to be a war against new black media. And I'm urging all of the voices of new black media to really hang in there, because this war that is coming against us, we need to be ready for it. And we need to be ready for this war against new black media in 2024. We need to understand that if we've got to fight to keep our messages out there, because new black media has had a tremendous impact over the last 16 years, and new black media has changed black people's perceptions of the world. New black media has changed the influence of black people's minds of the world. And because we are having an inroads as related to going out here and being a voice for black people and changing black people's perception of self, we've got to go out here and batten down the hatches, because there's going to be a war against new black media in 2024, and we need to be ready to get ready for combat. Now, this video is part one of a collaboration I'm doing with Mr. Chris from Chris and Company, and you can catch his first part on his radio platform on the Nice Radio Network. And we are going to be coming together on the Friday of this week, to do a live stream regarding this whole campaign of legacy media against new black media, and we want to get everybody informed. So I hope you'll be there for that live stream next Friday, where we'll be talking about how there's this campaign by the legacy media to go against new black media. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction that is a part of new black media, like the ISIS series, the Steam series, the John Haynes series, the books of the Spinsterella trilogy, my vampire novel Eternal Night, and my black sorority novel The Thetas, you can find all those books on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find those books at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you'd like to help me be able to stay on the air as a voice of new black media, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available in paperback and ebook, The Man Who Rules the World. John Haynes must bring together men and gods to overcome a threat that seeks to destroy the planet. The Man Who Rules the World. Now available in paperback and e-readers everywhere. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.